I wake on a tram that isn't my tram. My cheek sticks to a striped seat that looks like worn leather but feels wrong. The grain too even, too precise, like it came from a printer instead of a cow. Above me, the ceiling curves into a low arch of translucent panels. Behind them, filaments burn a steady white, edges too clean, with no comforting buzz. Outside the window, a river of glass slides past. Someone has poured transparent material into an old riverbed and polished it until it catches light like a mirror. Towers rise along each bank, rooted in stone and alloy. Scripts coil up their faces, hundreds of languages, some I recognize from obscure reports as dead, others I've never seen in any archive. I push myself upright. Every row is full. People slump in the same post-impact pose, hands loose, eyes unfocused. A man in a suit 2 seats down holds an invisible phone, thumb moving over empty air. 2 rows ahead, an alien's carapace catches the overhead light. Its joints look like someone fused ball bearings into living bone. It wears a dockworker's vest that might have come from any Earthport, except the logo is a spiral of concentric squares. I try to remember my commute. Office tower, elevator, pension fund floor. I spent the morning walking a junior fraud team through a suspicious annuity chain. The feed ran in the background, live shots of the cube hanging over Earth. We argued about what it would do to pensions because that was the kind of thing we cared about. An alert flashed on my screen about exposure in Chile. Then the world tilted. Now a tram glides along a glass river under towers carved with scripts no human city planner approved. Across the car, a uniform snaps into existence. Hard light, I think. Old marketing term, from before any of this. The uniform blooms out of the air by the door. Angular plates, high collar, a badge hovering above the heart with no visible support. The figure wearing it is human, male, late middle age, hair clipped short, posture like a bureaucrat who has learned to project authority while his body runs on fumes. He scans the car. His gaze stops on me. "You're awake earlier than most." His voice carries without strain. I glance behind me, then back at him. "Where am I?" "In transit from Earth to your point of conscription." That doesn't help. "You're inside the archive." He steps down the aisle, hard light plates reconfiguring around his body with each move. More precisely, inside a tram that skirts its entry districts. "This is your cohort." He flicks 2 fingers toward the rows. Humans, aliens, hybrids, all drifting in and out of shocks of awareness. A few eyes land on us, then slide away. "Conscription to what? Military?" "Administrative." He stops beside my seat. "Felix Dower." Hearing my name in his mouth jolts me harder than the alien skyline outside. I straighten. "Yes." "Mid-level investigator. Global pension fund. Fraud, risk masking, synthetic instruments designed to hide their true draw." His stare stays on my face. "You were screened and selected." "For what job?" "For an auditor post. The archive needs your instincts." The tram slows. The glass river widens. Platforms slide into view, built from slabs of concrete and stone that remember other lives. A curve of stadium seating, the skeleton of a shopping mall, a slice of amphitheater carved with alien reliefs. He touches his badge. The uniform shimmers, then settles. He nods at the door. "Come, I'll brief you between platforms." I stand. My legs work. Small victory. As I move down the aisle, the interior feels stripped. Panels run blank where advertising and corporate logos should sit. No transit maps, no coloured lines showing routes. Only smooth grey surfaces and occasional signs in unfamiliar characters with smaller human scripts squeezed underneath like an afterthought. I step into an arrival plaza made from stolen places. To my left, stadium seats rise, cracked and braced with new supports. To my right, half an office tower's glass front leans inward, its sheared upper floors replaced by a canopy of printed beams. Between them stretches a broad concourse paved with mismatched stone and polymer. At its center stand the billboards. They dwarf even the stadium. Vertical slabs of dark material, each one alive with numbers and meters. Bands of color slide across them, left and right, up and down. Labels run in overlapping columns. Human, central, outer, slow. Others are knotty symbols that might represent alien factions. Thought quotas. The man in uniform watches my reaction. You'll learn to read them. You are, I prompt. Velez. He adjusts the collar of a fabric shirt under the simulated plates. Enforcement Bureau. Right now your intake officer. You called this the archive. The interior of the cube. Velez corrects himself with a small tilt of the head. Realized environments bound to a computational substrate. The collector brings minds from harvested worlds and runs them here. Minds inhabit bodies. Bodies inhabit districts. Districts draw processing power. The sum of those draws can't exceed the supply, so everything competes. On the nearest board, a colored band shrinks. Its glow dims. The band beside it swells. What happens when a quota drops? Subjective time slows, perception thins, life stretches but with fewer steps. His gaze stays on the board. Hours blur into days. People still think, just less often. And when a quota rises. More clarity, more speed, more capacity to act. So you throttle consciousness like bandwidth. We allocate limited resources. He turns toward the concourse. That's where you come in. He walks. I fall in beside him. You were an investigator, Velez goes on. You followed false flows, pulled apart structures built to hide their use of value. The archive runs on flows. It's saturated with old structures. The collector appreciates anything that cuts waste and sabotage. You conscripted me without consent. Velez looks toward a line of humans being herded into a stadium tunnel. That word doesn't travel well here. Function matters more. We try to match roles with talents. Without that, the archive would collapse faster than it already is. A group of translucent-skinned aliens crowd a terminal nearby, bones and dark channels visible beneath their membrane. An attendant in hard light uniform hands out fingernail-sized chips. Some clutch them like currency, others like medication. Awareness minutes. Velez's tone is almost bored. Vouchers. People trade them for housing, work slots, favors. He steers me up a ramp along the plaza's edge. The view opens. The archive sprawls beneath us in layered fragments. Directly below lies the arrival zone, a mosaic of borrowed architecture stitched into walkways and squares. Bridges arc between districts like veins. Towers rise and crumble. Some surfaces shine, some flake away. On the horizon, the world changes. Beyond a hazy boundary, industrial forms crowd the distance. Frames taller than any Earth tower. Cranes frozen mid-swing. Rows of machinery lined like the ribs of some segmented creature. They sit under dimmer light, half hidden by distance and the field that separates regular districts from that region. That's where you never go. Velez follows my stare. What is it? Industrial yards, construction segments, off-limits to auditors, off-limits to almost everyone. The power flows that way. His mouth tightens at one corner. You notice that. I know a drain when I see one. A useful instinct. Keep it quiet. He taps a panel at the top of the ramp. A door unseals with a muted hiss. Your office is over there. Crossroads building. You'll like it. Plenty of views. Who sets the quotas? I nod back toward the billboards. Higher levels, machine cores, policy frameworks that run longer than our lives. The collector itself, maybe. His hand rests on the door. You don't cut the cake. You decide which districts get more crumbs, which get less, and how to justify each adjustment without breaking the structure. That's moving death around on a spreadsheet. Accurate enough. He opens the door. Come learn the interface. Inside, the air runs cool and dry. The hallway looks almost normal. Smooth walls, strip lighting, doors with embedded labels. I could be back in my pension fund office in Prague, except some windows open directly onto alien courtyards or human streets from stolen cities. Velez leads me to a room with a glass wall overlooking a tangle of transit lines. 4 bridges meet here in mid-air, carrying trams and cage-like carts. Below, districts stack downward into engineered depth, each with its own light and weather. Crossroads. Velez gestures at the room as if introducing a colleague. You process cases here. You sign. The archive changes. A black composite desk waits in the center, no visible controls. As I approach, symbols bloom along its edge, columns of names, indices, request codes. In the middle rests a small metal oval with a groove down its center. Your token. Velez nods at it. Touch it. My fingers close around the metal before I think. It's warm, as if someone carried it up here in a pocket. The names sharpen. A new column appears. Auditor, Felix Dower. You'll get packets, Velez explains. District profiles, metrics, complaint logs, incident histories. You talk to representatives, visit if you must, and decide whether their allotments change. Enforcement moves bodies if your decisions require it. What if I refuse? Refuse what? To sign. To move people. Velez studies my face. You'd be reassigned. To where? He nods toward the window. A canyon opens to the left. Its walls are packed with openings, each a small balcony. Figures occupy them, leaning on railings, sitting, pacing in short loops. Every movement feels off, like watching a vid at the wrong frame rate. Low priority strata, Velez explains. Prison bans, punishment layers, obsolete sectors. Time runs on thin rations. You continue, at a long stretch. Reviews happen occasionally. You put people there for refusing to push others down. We put people there for destabilizing the archive. His tone doesn't change. That includes walking away from necessary roles. He turns toward the door. Your first case waits in the hearing room. I'll introduce you, then you'll start work. I look once more at the canyon, at a man raising his hand through thick air. My grip tightens on the token. I'll attend the hearing. Velez gives a short nod and opens the door. The hearing room belonged to a different institution once. The chairs don't match. Carved wood backs beside simple metal frames. Murals from at least 3 cultures climb the walls. A human travel poster wraps around a pillar, half buried behind alien glyphs. At the far end, a raised desk holds 3 slots. 2 are filled. One bears a name, Orsic. The man behind it has a lined face, grey hair, shoulders sagged by long hours over records. His eyes track me as Velez steers me into the open slot. New auditor, Velez murmurs, then steps away. Orsic pushes a file toward the center. Earth Intake District 9, provisional. His voice is worn smooth. Recent arrival, poor integration, heavy draw, options, maintain, upgrade for stabilization, or downgrade. On the floor below, 3 humans stand together. A middle-aged man with a teacher's posture, shoulders squared toward the room. A younger man in a delivery uniform scuffs a boot on the capital of a fallen column. An old man with a union pin rests both hands on a cane that looks newer than his clothes. I sit. The file shifts into human language. Earth Intake District 9. Recent import, Coastal City Fragment. Population mix, office workers, service staff, small traders. Output, low. Disorientation, unemployment, poor match for existing specialized industries. Energy draw, moderate. Complaints, fear of downgrade, confusion about rules, requests for contact with other human districts. An auto-recommendation pulses at the bottom. Minor downgrade, partial relocation outward, space opened for more productive mind clusters. The teacher looks up. We're getting our bearings, he calls. We lost everything in one wave. You can't expect us to become specialists overnight. We can teach, translate, organize. We just need time. His voice holds steady. The delivery worker shifts from foot to foot. They told us we could apply for training slots. The younger man's words trip over each other. No one answers. Officers send us back to intake. Intake sends us here. We don't know where we stand. The old man taps his cane once. I spent 30 years fighting for pensions. His gaze doesn't waver. Now those pensions are gone. Tell us what counts as useful here, and we'll do it. Orsic leans toward me. Standard pattern. New intake, low output. The machine likes clean numbers. What do you usually do? I whisper back. If a district shows potential, I give them a trial uplift. He flips a page. If they fail, later downgrades cut deeper. 9 already had an extension. And if we downgrade now? Time stretches. Perception thins. The least active will stand in lines they think last days, while years slip. He doesn't blink. Fear drops with clarity. Less unrest. I look down at the 3 men. They stand with that particular intensity people reserve for judges and surgeons. Do other human districts perform better? I ask. Some. Orsic taps his panel. Tech-heavy regions adapted fast. They plug into archive infrastructure, provide maintenance, design trades, translation networks. They draw more than they give, but higher levels tolerate it. Earth is new blood. If we downgrade 9 and shift part of their quota to those districts, their numbers rise. The machine approves. The teacher watches me. The delivery worker knots his hands. The union man's knuckles press white against his cane. I think of my old office. Spreadsheets full of pension flows, high-risk flags, systems that made it easy to hide cruelty behind columns. District 9. I focus on the record. Temporary downgrade by 1 minor tier. Residents who show useful skills get flagged for transfer into higher output human districts. Monitor unrest and re-evaluate after 1 cycle. The token glows. Out in the canyon beyond the glass, a strip of balcony lights shifts. The rhythm slows by a fraction. On the floor, the teacher lowers his head. The younger man stares. The old man's jaw trembles. We appreciate the consideration, the teacher manages. He doesn't, and we both know it. He's lived inside systems long enough to perform gratitude anyway. When the hearing ends, Velez walks me back toward Crossroads. You did well, he says. I downgraded them. You kept most of them out of the low strata. He stops by the window. That counts as mercy here. Get used to translating harm into relative terms. Below, the human district that used to be a coastal city clings to the canyon wall. Its light shifts in subtle ways, enough that once you know the pattern, you see the change. My hand presses against the glass. Who judges us? I ask. Up the chain. Velez shrugs. But you judge yourself first. Lose that and you'll go under faster than any oversight can push you. He leaves me with the views and the token. The archive doesn't use keyboards. Everything runs through contact points. When I press my token into a slot, maps rise, data clusters shift, histories unspool. Audits arrive as compressed case tiles with bare narrative. I want more story each time. How people ended up here, who they were before. But the system treats narratives as noise. Other auditors exist. I learn their names through message headers and glimpses at shared hearings. Orsic, who has survived longer than his wrinkles reveal, depending on how his personal quota has fluctuated. Pavlenko, Russian finance background. Phylan, an alien whose designation translates loosely as that, representing an old empire with a long archive service record. Most treat the work like my colleagues treated pension fraud, necessary, technical, unglamorous. Between packets, I walk. A level below Crossroads, markets wrap a bent street around an artificial courtyard. Awnings stitched from shattered billboards and scrap fabric shade stalls. Goods hang from hooks, dried token strips, cartridges, unfamiliar machine parts, printed food blocks stacked like bricks. Behind the goods, deals revolve around one thing: minutes of awareness. A man with a tattooed neck waves a thin strip of polymer, tiny notches along one edge. 5 minutes guaranteed, he calls to a passing group. Bright time, clean, fully transferable. Aliens with lens eyes chatter in a layered language. One slots a strip into a wrist device. A faint glow runs along his arm. I move closer until someone blocks my path. He's taller than me, broad shoulders, jaw set by long, grinding years. His clothes mix human tactical gear with local scraps. A harness over his chest bears a clenched fist around a spiral. "You're the new auditor." His gaze runs over me. "Dour." Apparently, I watch him back. Human. Late 30s, maybe. "And you are?" "Slade." He dips his head once. "I organize local defense. Humans don't have much, so we keep what we can." "Defense from what?" "Each other. Older factions. Enforcement sweeps." Slade's eyes flick to the token against my chest. "You, in practice." "I'm not enforcement." "You move the ground under people's feet." He gestures at the stalls. "You decide who thinks fast and who takes months to finish a thought. A gun squad kills bodies. You thin out time." "Guns end things," I answer. "I adjust flows. And a life is just a measure of time." Slade's stare doesn't soften. "Do you remember when your street vanished?" "My street?" "Earth." He waits. "The day the cube locked in. Pieces of the world went missing, then came back wrong. You think that was clean?" Images stir. News feeds. Office gossip. Streets flickering in and out. Buildings returned with missing floors. Pension records with names flagged both alive and dead. "There were anomalies in pension files," I murmur. "People listed as dead and still drawing benefits." "That was the archive learning how to cut." Slade folds his arms. "Now it's learning how to keep. You're part of that. Use your post well, or you'll hang in a slow cliff with the others." He steps aside with a grudging nod. I watch a young man trade a day's awareness for a berth in a steadier building. His fingers shake as he hands over his strip. The trader checks, slots, nods. A chipped key changes hands. Everything here comes down to the same transaction. Clarity now against a promise later. In the evening, whatever passes for evening without a sun, Orsic catches me at the tram platform. "Ride out with me," he suggests. "You should see the slow bands close before you send more people there." We board a tram that leaves normal routes behind, gliding along the canyon I saw from my office. Each balcony holds bodies in almost life poses. A man leans on a railing, eyes fixed on us. Two brothers face each other mid-gesture. A group of aliens sit around a board, pieces mid-move. "Low-priority minds," Orsic says. "Some for crimes, some for rebellion, some for being inconvenient, some for failing quotas again and again. Everything stretches." "How long do they stay like that?" "Depends." He scratches his cheek. "Some for cycles. Some for spans that feel like lifetimes. Sometimes we pull one back for leverage. Families behave better when a loved one hangs in a slow band." "You're very calm about this." "I'm practiced." He nods forward. "Look." At the canyon's end, the walls fall away. The tram glides onto a bridge over a vast drop. Below, the industrial yards spread out. From this angle, the shapes sharpen. Platform islands hold huge frameworks, half-grown districts folded in on themselves. Conveyor lines carry structural segments from frame to frame. Heavy arms swing wide arcs. Climbing cranes adjust cables. Wide channels emit pale light as energy flows in from inhabited zones. "That's outside your remit." Orsic watches the yard. No one beneath enforcement directors goes there. "What are they building?" "There are stories." He lowers his voice by habit. "Backup chains, expansion nodes, machines to compress the archive further and pack more minds into less space. Or something bigger." The tram curves back toward Crossroads. "You've been here a long time," I try. "Long enough." His gaze stays on the yards. "If you want to last, learn the patterns. The system doesn't care what you break yourself on." A few cycles later, we sit in an alien parliament. The chamber curves inward. walls covered in bas-reliefs of interlocking geometries. Tiered seating rises around a central ring platform. On one side of the ring stands Phelan, tall, slender, skin like polished stone. 3 eyes arranged in a triangle across his face. His robe is woven from hexagonal plates that click when he moves. On the other side, 3 smaller factions cluster together. One of their speakers is human, compact, hairline already retreating. He looks at Phelan as if the sight tastes bad. Allocations to the Central Imperial Districts exceed agreed parameters. The human speaks toward our desk. They claim outputs that don't match the flows we see. We request an audit. Phelan lifts one hand. Our networks support archive infrastructure across multiple layers. His voice has the cadence of someone used to formal chambers. Our contributions route through indirect channels. Simple flow tools won't capture their full value. The suspicion, Orsic murmurs near my ear, is that they're laundering credit through dummy districts. Shell companies, in your terms. I open the Imperial profile. Metrics stack up. Energy in and out. Maintenance tasks. Design. Enforcement support. Flow maps, I tell the terminal. Nodes explode across the air, linked in a dense web. To most eyes, it might look messy, but legitimate. I've spent years reading such patterns. I zoom into a cluster labeled as peripheral Imperial districts. Their outputs feed one larger node, then flare outward into archive infrastructure. That node. I highlight it. Helix Sector 6. It shares a name root with a central district, but the label calls it Outer Industrial. When did that change? A note appears. Recent reclassification. Justification. Improved output. Compare activity before and after, I request. The graphs barely budge. Work levels stay flat. Energy draw jumps. Phelan, my voice carries to the ring. Helix Sector 6 was reclassified recently. Its reported work didn't change. Its draw did. Explain. Phelan's eyes shift, each fixing on a different point before settling on me. Helix Sector 6 coordinates multiple projects. His tone stays perfectly level. Its role changed. Its output spread through other nodes your tool mislabels. The pattern repeats. I sweep the map. Several nodes labeled as outer share your central name roots. Their draw rises without matching output. Credits flow through them into your core. Risk and blame stay on the supposed periphery. Murmurs ripple through the tiers. I remember similar cases back home. Pension funds hollowed out through reclassifications and shell entities, money flowing to safe centers while risk stayed on paper. You provide real services, I say, but the numbers are inflated. Here's the adjustment. Bars shift on my panel. Central Imperial districts keep a portion of their quotas, minus the gains from those misclassified nodes. Linked outer districts receive a modest increase. Any further reclassifications route through independent review. Phelan holds still for a beat, then inclines his head a fraction. You're impairing my network's efficiency. I'm nudging them toward honesty. He studies me, less offended than recalibrating. Efficient honesty is rare, he observes. It can be useful. Later in my office, I watch the power flows. Graphs show energy leaving inhabited districts and thickening into lines toward the industrial yards. The numbers have ticked upward since I arrived. Each new Earth harvest sends a spike through those channels. A message appears on my terminal. No official header. No signature. Just text in several languages. The archive's translation layer whispering meaning into my mind. You see the drain. You know it's wrong. If you want to understand it, go to Platform Zeta at Standard Time 3 Alpha. Don't log the trip. A tram route follows, marked in maintenance symbols. I stare at the message, then at the canyon. The slow bands glow faintly beyond the window. If I go, it could be a trap. If I ignore it, the question about the yards will keep gnawing until it distorts every decision. Curiosity wins. It always has. I wipe the message from visible cues and memorize the route. When the time comes, I slip out through a service corridor, token tucked under my shirt. The maintenance platform crouches under one of the main transit lines. Bare metal panels, utilitarian markings in old archive script, no murals, no comforts. One other figure waits, not human, but close in outline. Slender, long-fingered, skin poured smooth rather than grown. Two horizontal eye slits widen and narrow with the light. "You came," he says, "and you're my anonymous correspondent. For now, call me Hicks." He steps closer. "You stare at flows longer than most. We need that." "We?" Footsteps echo behind me. Slade emerges from a tunnel with two men in militia bands. His expression tightens when he spots me. "Of course." He shakes his head. "The new auditor with a conscience and a calculator." "So this is your game," I say. "Anonymous invitations in maintenance code. This is bigger than local turf." Slade folds his arms. "You wanted to know why the yards drain so much. Hicks can show you." Hicks gestures to the platform's edge. "Look." From here, the industrial yards fill the view. Frames tower close. I see joints where beams lock, plates sliding into place, fields holding half-built segments tight. Power lines glow as they run from inhabited zones into the yards, through converters, then into a central spine. Those lines carry the difference between fast lives and slow bands, Hicks says. They're supposed to feed construction that expands capacity for everyone. Right now they feed something else. A breakaway shard. Hicks watches the flows. A chain of districts and infrastructure that can detach from the archive and run on its own. You're planning to steal part of the cube. Steel works for handbags. Hicks's lids flatten. We extract, divert, liberate. Call it what you like. We get one shot at saving anything. If we detach a portion and give it stable power, we keep a slice of humanity out of quota wars. And you need an auditor. I face Hicks. To do what? To route the right districts into the right positions before detachment. To mask extra power draws as normal fluctuations. To frame the shard as ordinary reconfiguration instead of theft. Why me? You see fraud patterns. Hicks's slits narrow. You caught Phelan's game on your own. You hesitate before pushing new arrivals into slow bands. You aren't loyal enough to enforcement to ignore what you see, but you understand the rules well enough to bend them. You could pick any disillusioned auditor. We tried. Hicks's shoulders lift. They lacked your mix of skill and restraint, or they lacked leverage. Slade steps closer. Leverage. Hicks looks at me. Earth is still being harvested. Every cycle, more segments come in. The collector chooses them by criteria we don't fully grasp. The next wave hits your arrival plazas in 2 spans. What does that have to do with leverage? One district in that wave holds someone important to you. Ice runs through my chest. Who? Your younger brother, Philip Dower. I'm holding Hicks's collar before I know I've moved, pressing him into the wall. How do you know that? We have watchers on intake feeds. Hicks doesn't flinch. We saw the name, matched the profile. We know how to read Earth records. Slade lays a hand on my wrist. Easy. Enforcement cameras are blind on this platform for 10 minutes. Try not to waste them. I step back. Hicks adjusts his collar. Philip arrives soon, Hicks continues. Intake will place him wherever their matrix dictates. With our help, you can steer him and his district into the shard formation. Without us, he vanishes into the lower layers. You're using him. We're offering you a way to pull him, and others, out of the grinder. Hicks's voice stays even. You worked in pensions. You tried to protect people's future allocations. This is the same game, scaled up. Who else is we? Hicks gestures into the tunnel. Phelan steps out of the shadows. He must have arrived during the argument, silent as a thought. His robe plates lie still. All 3 eyes focus on me. My empire has served the archive through many cycles. Phelan's tone could belong in any hearing chamber. We built systems, maintained infrastructure, enforced compliance. We also watched the archive consume itself. The collector never eases. It preserves capacity by compressing minds tighter and tighter. The shard is a way for some of us to leave that spiral. And who gets seats, I ask? Those who can keep it stable. Key infrastructure districts, productive populations, useful specialists. In other words, your cores, engineering zones, and whatever humans Slade controls. You speak as if that's unjust. Phelan tilts his head. It's practical. Survival is logistics. Hicks cuts in. We're willing to include a portion of recent Earth arrivals, especially if that secures your help. So the price of my brother's life is helping you cut off part of the archive and leave the rest. You're simplifying, Slade snaps. The shard will be small and fragile. One bad allocation from collapse. But it will be ours. If enforcement finds out, they'll respond with what they know. Hicks's voice stays flat. Downgrades, punitive stretches, deletions. That's coming anyway if the system keeps trending this way. I stare down into the yards. Frames rise like ribs. Machines crawl along them, slotting parts into place. Every beam, every plate, every cable comes from someone's slowed life. On Earth, I traced schemes that shifted risk downward and profit upward. Each architect convinced themselves it was necessary. Here, the same logic towers over entire worlds. When exactly will Philip arrive? In 2 standard spans, Hicks nods. We can map you to his intake line. You'll see him yourself. After that, Slade adds, we need you to start nudging audits. Small at first. A little here, a little there. Detachment isn't scheduled soon. No one wants to rush and tear our shard apart. I want terms. Hicks's eyes narrow again. Terms. Philip's district gets a real seat in the shard, I say. A stable component, not a buffer to strip. That's acceptable. Hicks inclines his head. They'll have to contribute. Training, integration. No one rides free. Second, I nod toward the canyon. We give space to some of the slow strata. The ones punished for resisting, not just petty crime. If this shard becomes a safe haven for elites and their militias, I don't help. Bringing rebels risks everything. Slade frowns. They know how this system crushes people. I meet his eyes. They also know where it cracks, and I won't help build a cleaner prison. Hicks looks to Phelan. Your view? Rebellion depends on context. Phelan steps forward, plates whispering. Those who fought this archive may fight the shard if we mirror its cruelties. Anchor their loyalties early, and we gain both skill and an internal check on our own excesses. His eyes settle on me. It may be wise. Slade scowls, then lets out a breath. Fine. Limited numbers. We choose which bands to lift. We choose together, I counter. I'm not here to hand you only the rebels you can domesticate. You hold the pen, Hicks reminds me. Use that leverage, but don't overreach. The shard has to survive. Triage without structural sense kills more than narrow triage ever will. One more condition. Hicks waits. If I help form the shard, I design its power feeds. I decide how it draws from the archive. That was already the plan, Hicks says. We need your hand there. Do you agree? I picture Philip. Pensioners whose names slid under my cursor while their retirements shrank in someone else's quiet decision. District 9's teacher asking for time. I'll meet my brother at intake, I say. Then I choose. 2 spans later, the cube takes another bite. Through a ceiling panel someone installed as comfort, the sky shows Earth. Blue, brown, white. Then a shadow intrudes, black with edges so precise they cut the eye. Land flickers out. When it returns, pieces don't match. Arrival platforms swell with new bodies. On the tram, people reel out in office wear, work suits, scrubs. A man in a subway uniform still grips a broken turnstile handle. An elderly woman clutches a limp grocery bag. A boy holds a dead game console. Then I see him. Philip stands near the edge of the crowd. one hand pressed to his chest as if holding himself together. He's older than when I last saw him in person. Heavier stubble, hair a little thinner at the temples. His eyes are the same. We used to line them up in photos for our mother. His gaze sweeps the chaos, moving from shock to anger with barely a pause. Typical Philip. Philip, he turns. Recognition hits him like a physical blow. He takes 2 strides toward me, then stops short, staring at my token and the faint shimmer of hard light around my shoulders. You work for them. I was conscripted. We all were. I mean as an auditor. I lift the token. Allocations. You tune the sliders they use to suffocate people. The words land heavier than anything Slade or Hicks threw at me. You disappeared, he continues. One morning you're at your desk arguing about longevity models. By afternoon your floor is gone. The feeds speculate. Abduction, casualty. Now you're up here in uniform. I woke on a tram, same as you. They liked my old job. Does it map well? Philip tilts his head. Pensions to quotas? Too well. He laughs once, no humor in it. You always had a talent for numbers. He gestures at my chest. You'd look at a sheet and spot the lie in the 3rd column. Now you use that talent to choose who thinks fast enough to tie their shoes. I'm trying to keep as many as I can out of the slow bands. You hear yourself? He sweeps his arm at the crowd. We're cattle in a meat plant and you're proud of smoothing the ramp. I didn't say proud. What do you want? Philip asks. Approval? Forgiveness? I want you alive, I answer. Somewhere I can protect you. He snorts. I'm not a file for you to manage, Felix. Neither are they. Intake officials in hard light uniforms shout instructions, directing arrivals toward tunnels labeled with alien symbols and small human letters. Provisional living, skill assessment, prison hold. I have access. I lower my voice. Limited but real. I can steer you and some of your neighbors toward a district with decent odds. Better than whatever random slot they drag up. Philip studies my face. You're already building something, he says. An island in this machine. Something like that. And who else sits on your island? A coalition, I admit. Human militias, old empires, rebels from slow bands. So you're cutting deals with warlords and former tyrants. Classic you. You'll sit at any table if the numbers line up. That's not fair. You worked for a fund that bought debt from regimes you pretended not to know much about. He doesn't look away. You told yourself you just traced flows, that you didn't choose where pain landed. Now you're doing it with consciousness. Let me do something useful this time, I say. If I get this right, your district ends up with higher awareness, stable infrastructure, less downgrade risk. It's a better cage than most. And in exchange, you trust me enough to let me move you. And you don't sign up with anyone promising one glorious strike that somehow topples the archive from inside. That sales pitch already came by. Philip nods towards Slade, waiting at the platform edge. Your militia friend. Training, weapons, a chance to hit back. I keep my eyes on Philip. They plan to carve off a shard of this thing. And you're in that plan. I'm trying to twist it into something that doesn't just rebuild the worst parts. Philip exhales through his nose. You always believe you can fix systems from inside. He glances at the intake tunnels. Fine, you want me alive. Show me you remember what that meant before quotas. Come with me, I'll tag your district myself. He nods once. Intake processes lives like luggage. Machines scan. Representatives fire quick questions about skills, history, medical flags. A matrix assigns people to provisional housing, balancing population, space, and quota capacity. While the intake officer quizzes Philip, I tap my token to the side panel. His file opens. Philip Dower, 30s, urban planning consultant. Capture, Prague, Earth. Assign him to District 12, I instruct. Provisional human neighborhood near crossroads, moderate stability. The system pauses, weighing guidelines. A small icon blinks. Justification needed. Rationale, I input. Family tie to Auditor Felix Dower. Expected higher contribution with familiar support and relevant urban planning skills for evolving districts. The icon turns green. Philip points out a handful of neighbors behind him, people he knows by name. I slip matching edits into their files where the matrix allows, clustering them with him. I can't save everyone. But some arrivals leave the platform with linked assignments instead of scattered placements. Later, Philip stands at my crossroads window, watching the districts stack and slide. They built this from pieces of us, he says, whole streets spliced into an alien skeleton. Some districts are pure archive, I answer. Some are composites, the collector-like sampling. And you want to peel a piece away and run. It beats waiting for this thing to compress us into a whisper. Or for someone above you to decide humans aren't worth the watts. Exactly. He turns. If you build this shard, you decide who comes and who stays, he says. Who gets fast time, who lives on the faded edge, who breathes in bright centers, who flickers. I'm already making those calls, I answer. The shard changes the scale, not the job. And you think you can carry that? What would you rather I do? I ask. Refuse and leave it to someone with no qualms. Join Slade's crews and shoot at enforcement while the audits roll on. Hide until I get downgraded. Philip studies me. I want you to stop pretending you can stay clean, he says at last. You're going to pick who dies faster and who gets to think. Own it. Then maybe you'll make fewer excuses. He leaves without touching my shoulder. My audits change. At first, the moves are small. A human market district abutting the industrial region requests an upgrade to handle growing trade. I grant it, with a condition that slides some stalls closer to a future shard boundary. A mixed-species engineering workshop complains of idle talent. I attach them to infrastructure maintenance near the yards, nudging both their quota and their physical position toward the industrial spine. A slow prison band petitions. Their leader, Zed, claims deep knowledge of archive maintenance, offering it for partial reprieve. His record lines up with Hicks's list of potential recruits, so I authorize a narrow uplift. A fraction of his band moves to a faster adjacent layer. Enough awareness to think. Enough slowness to feel the gap they leave behind. Every change looks reasonable on paper. Increased stability here, better integration there, improved use of skills somewhere else. In the background, the shard map sharpens. Meetings on the maintenance platform grow more detailed. A central spine anchored on this frame. Hicks traces the air over a schematic. Around that, infrastructure districts, power conversion, cooling, time management. Then living districts in layers, Phelan adds. Human, imperial, technical. We keep skill sets interwoven. We only fit so many. Hicks's voice thins. We decide who we leave. Slade crashes these sessions, sometimes alone, sometimes with an entourage. We prioritize human blocks, he insists in one argument. We're the freshest. We remember real sky. Your districts include gangs and opportunists, Phelan counters. We won't anchor security purely on untested militias. Your troops enforced the quotas that got us here. Slade's lip curls. Don't lecture me about trust. The fights circle and circle. Each time I push for quiet adjustments. Philip's district near the center, I repeat. Rebels near maintenance conduits. No faction holds more than a third of total quota. No simple coup. You think like a risk manager, Hicks notes once. You're turning politics into portfolio weights. I'm trying not to stack power where it can topple everything, I answer. I've seen what happens when one unregulated entity holds all the risk. Oversight eventually notices. Velez sends a message. Audit of auditor activities. Report to review. The chamber looks like an interrogation room dressed as an office. Comfortable chairs, neutral panels, a smooth table. Velez sits with his back straight, hands folded. "I've been watching your cases," he opens. "You're careful. Some on the board appreciate that. Others see patterns." "What patterns?" "You upgrade a disproportionate number of districts near the yards. You pull certain slow bands closer to the core, while downgrading other areas in ways that create odd pockets of spare capacity. Each decision checks out alone. Together, they look like scaffolding." I keep my face still. "Scaffolding for what?" "If I saw this pattern in a pension book back home," Velez continues, "wrapped around shared shell entities, I'd assume someone's prepping a structured extraction. You think I'm plotting a theft? I think you're involved with people who dream about detaching sections of this archive." His eyes don't blink. "The yards feature heavily in rumor." "Rumor isn't evidence." "True." He leans back. "Rumor lined up with numbers deserves attention." Silence stretches. "You enjoy leverage when you review others." He lifts his hands slightly. "I enjoy some when I review you. Enforcement tolerates creative accounting while the archive stays stable. If your patterns crack it, we react. I'd rather not waste you." "That's a warning." "That's exactly what it is." Velez's voice doesn't rise. "Whatever you're doing, keep the structure intact. Don't make me choose between duty and the respect I still have for your instincts." He stands. "We'll talk again." Outside, trams web across the view. The canyon yawns to my left. Yards smolder on the horizon. Slade finds me staring. "You look like a man who just learned his walls are thin," he says, leaning on the rail. "Enforcement flagged my anomalies." I don't look away from the yards. "They suspect." "How bad?" "Velez warned me. That's all." "Not nothing." Slade scratches at his stubble. "Can we speed up the schedule?" "Rush a detachment and you tear the shard apart." I shake my head. "Hicks will fight any attempt to sprint." "We don't have endless time." Slade nods toward the arrival plazas. "Earth doesn't either. My people talk about missing continents. If we jump early and collapse, everyone we pulled dies faster than if we left them." I keep my voice low. "Pick your disaster." Slade pushes off the rail. "I trust your numbers," he grudges. "But if you use them as a shield to abandon us, don't expect forgiveness." A hearing in an amphitheater near the yards becomes a pivot point. The room is packed. Delegates from dozens of factions crowd the tiers. In the central ring, an enforcement presenter, an older alien with a voice like gravel, explains that rising flows toward the yards support an efficiency upgrade for the archive. Phelan and Imperial allies ask about oversight and benefit distribution. Smaller factions voice fears that their districts fund growth they'll never share. When my turn comes, I step to the front of the auditor's bench. Current data shows substantial energy diverted to the yards without visible returns in expanded living space or increased quota capacity, I say. From outside, it looks like the slow bands are paying for a future they may never experience. Several delegations nod, others scowl. Enforcement's presenter replies with talk of staggered rollout and long-horizon planning. I offer a proposal instead. Publish a schedule of expected benefits, I suggest. Document which layers gain relief as new capacity comes online. Give auditors limited access to verify that the yard's draw matches their promised outputs. Without that, rumors will spread. I don't mention the shard. The shadow hangs there anyway. Hicks later calls it a useful smokescreen. Phelan calls it an elegant cover for a more radical timetable. Slade mutters about delays. In the plazas, the air changes. Arrivals crowd platforms. Human militias drill in quiet corners, away from enforcement optics. Aliens trade rumors about upcoming reconfiguration, compression cycles, new culls of low-output zones. Philip stops by my office less. When he does, it's usually to pace. "They're training us to accept sliders as fate," he says one evening, wearing down a track in my carpet. "In the district, every problem comes back to quotas. People talk about awareness minutes the way they used to talk about wages. Here, Minutes are wages, I answer. Without them, you can't think clearly enough to work, organize, or push back. The system defines value that way. Then we change what counts as value. He stops. Break the system. With what? I ask. Slogans? With knives, if needed. You're starting to sound like Slade. I drink with Slade's people. Philip's eyes flash. At least they talk about action. You offer spreadsheets. I'm using those spreadsheets to pull you into better lanes. I gesture at the window. Your district hasn't taken a downgrade since intake. Your quotas sit above most new arrivals. That isn't chance. And in exchange, I play the grateful little brother and keep quiet. I expect you to live long enough to matter when we shape what's next. You've always liked managing me. Remember when you steered me from art school to urban planning? You brought employment graphs, debt projections, rental charts. I wanted you to have options. You wanted me to fit your model of sensible life. He leaves the office as if it pushed him. The shard plan hardens. Hicks brings a detailed schematic to the maintenance platform. Reconfiguration event in 6 cycles. He points to a lattice of nodes and lines. The archive will shift districts anyway. We hide extra moves inside that churn. We pull our chosen districts into place near the industrial spine. At the right moment, we sever. How do we power it long term? I ask. Hicks's eye slits narrow in what passes for a smile. We siphon from the archive's outer layers through hidden induction nodes in the yards, he says. Spread across enough nodes, no single drawer looks suspicious. It buys time, I say, but once the archive adjusts, it'll find those channels. We only need stability right after detachment. Hicks's fingers dance through the schematic. After that, we can rework our internals. I trace flows with my eyes. There's another source. I tap a peripheral graph. The harvest process. Hicks waits. Every time the collector bites into a world, power usage spikes. I circle a pattern. The archive spends energy to convert matter into substrate, then recycles some into capacity. We can route a fraction of that spike straight into the shard. You want our survival tied to ongoing harvests? Phelan notes. It's a stream no one can shut off from our level, I answer. The collector will keep feeding on worlds whether we tap it or not. If we hook into that, the shard gets a steady inflow and depends less on standard quotas. Slade grimaces. You're proposing to live off new abductions. We already live off slow time, I say. Every bright minute here runs on someone else's stretched life. At least this way we use that violence to hold a smaller, less vicious space together. You hear yourself. You're turning mass kidnapping into a line item. This machine will harvest whether we touch it or not. I don't look away. We can either tap the current and use it to keep a fragment alive, or let it drown everything without even trying. That's what you call trying. I call it triage. It's ugly. It's the only thing with a chance of keeping your people and my brother breathing. Hicks studies me in silence. You recognize the trap, he finally says. What trap? You wire your shard to a machine you despise, Hicks explains. If the collector stops, you starve. If it continues, you live off its feed. If it stops, the archive dies with us. If it doesn't, at least some minds live faster in here, with a say. I endorse it, Phelan says. The logic fits the archive. It's clean. Slade looks from him to Hicks, then to me. You already picked a side, he says. I picked survival for a fraction, I answer. If you have a plan that saves more, I'll listen. He doesn't. The reconfiguration day arrives without ceremony. System messages roll through the archive, warning of shifts. Some districts get notices about time adjustments, others just shudder. The ceiling panel over the arrival plaza shows Earth in crisis. Large swaths vanish, leaving grey scars. Clouds twist as the cube's mass moves. My interface floods with alerts. Reconfiguration Stage 1. District realignment. Flow lines will be redistributed. Hallways fill with people. Enforcement units stand at junctions. Hard light helmets opaque. Militia squads linger in shadowed corners, hands near weapons that won't matter much against armor. Velez intercepts me toward the tram. "You know what today is?" he says, matching my pace. "Officially, system optimization." I keep my tone neutral. "And unofficially, whatever the yards have been building." Velez's eyes search my face. "If you're tangled in something that will destabilize this event," he says, "this is the last moment to back away. I can't shield you from what follows a crack." "You sound worried." "I prefer my auditor's breathing." He looks past me toward the yards. Slow band decorations don't sign packets. "If I walk out of this, it'll be because I did my job." I meet his gaze. "You told me once the first judge is myself. That runs both ways." "I meant you should keep your conscience awake." He snorts. "Not build private worlds." I hold his stare. "I'm working on both." He stops walking. "We'll talk after," Velez says. The control gallery sits near the yards. Small room, given what it governs. Consoles circle a central pit. Windows open on industrial frames below. Cables as thick as trams run along the walls, humming with power and data. Hicks waits at the main interface. Phelan stands nearby. Slade leans against a support beam, 2 men behind him, eyes on the corridor. "You're late," Slade says. "I had a performance review." I move to the console. "Are we aligned?" "Stage 1 is complete." Hicks gestures at a hovering schematic. "District shifted. Stage 2 starts when you alter the flows." On the map, districts appear as nodes. Some glow green, our shard. Others are grey, left behind. A handful blink amber, at risk. "Your brother's district is in place," Hicks points out. "The rebel band we agreed on is partially in. Slade's core zone is anchored. Phelan's infrastructure forms the inner ring. And the slow layers we couldn't reach? Stay where they are." Hicks doesn't soften the words. "We didn't have capacity." "This is as good as it gets," Slade mutters. "Start." I step into the ring. The interface is built into the floor and rails around the pit. Plates bear clusters of symbols and small depressions for tokens. I set my token into the central groove. The room reacts. Maps bloom. Lines swell and thin. Archive scripts flood my vision with default reconfiguration options. If I follow the standard prompts, flows redistribute according to enforcement plans. The yards continue their work. The archive grows denser. If I trigger Hicks's script, hidden commands reroute flows to the shard, bind its districts to the industrial spine, then sever. A third pattern sits in my head, formed in quiet nights. I start there. For each shard node, I open a secondary channel piggybacking on future harvest spikes. I bury those channels among thousands of minor balancing tweaks, like hairline wires hidden in plaster. I adjust which districts lock onto the industrial spine. One Imperial core hub that Phelan expected to carry into the shard stays on the main archive. In its place, I attach a mixed species workshop, whose engineers unknowingly helped me design safer conduits. I pull Slade's militia zone slightly closer to center than agreed. The shard will need security when the main archive realizes a piece is gone. I drag the rebel band fully into the shard's outer ring and give them enough quota to move, to notice, to organize. For each district I pull in, 2 remain grey. District 9 sits outside my reach. To bring it in, I'd have to drop another node. Phillips District, maybe. Someone's home either way. I don't. District 9 will stay. The teacher, delivery worker, and union man will live in stretched days, judged by someone else. I accept that cost. Once the bones of the shard are in place, I trigger Hicks's core sequence. Reconfiguration stage 2 begins. Frames in the yard swivel, cables arc. Across the archive, districts slide, bridges extend or retract, connections snap. People tumble into gaps the system will patch later or not. Our shard cluster tightens around the yards. Outside the windows, a strip of city wraps around the industrial spine and begins to pull away from the cube's bulk. For a breath, thick cables bind it. Then they flare white. The shard drifts. Alarms scream through the gallery. Enforcement override requested. Unauthorized flow patterns detected. The floor lurches. Is it holding? Slade grips a rail, voice sharp over the klaxon. Internal connections are stable. Hicks's eyes flick over the graphs. Quota flows are coherent. Hicks points to a graph recording, spikes each time the collector feeds. Branching field projections run from that graph into our shard. Your channel's latched. The shard will drink from every intake event. So as long as the collector keeps eating, Slade says, we do too. The room jerks harder. A crack races along one wall, opening a narrow gap. Through it, I glimpse frames below twisting, trams bucking, platforms grinding as connections fail. We need to get to the shard side. The words tear out of me. Now! Slade doesn't argue. We bolt. The corridor outside tilts, lights strobing. The shard moves, no longer anchored. An enforcement squad rushes toward the gallery, hard light shields up. Their leader spots my auditor plates and hesitates. What did you do? His voice cuts through the alarms. Stabilizing flows, I throw back. If you want anything to hold, you need me at a console. It's a lie with a thin skin of truth. He weighs it for a heartbeat, then pushes past toward Hicks. Slade drags me the other way. We run down a ramp turned sideways, clutching rails. Outside, through windows that now angle wrong, the main archive slides away. Bridges drop, districts twist. On the opposite side, the industrial spine and our attached districts shudder but stay together. Up ahead, Philip clings to a doorway, knuckles white. So this is your big move, he calls over the noise, tearing the world apart. Yes. I reach for him. You're on the piece that still runs. Come on. He doesn't argue this time. He falls in behind us. Slade leads us into a sealed maintenance tube that has become a connector between the separating masses. Its far end anchors in the shard. Its near end still barely rests on the main archive's ledge. As we cross, the main archive tilts away. Below, a district shears. People spill. Some plummet too fast, some in syrupy arcs, their local time skewed by shifting quotas. Halfway across, a voice calls my name. Dower. I look back. Velez stands at the near end, one hand on the rail, the other braced on the doorway frame. Cracks spiderweb his hard light plates. You did this, he says. I helped, I answer. He looks past me at the drifting shard. You think you'll outrun the collector in that sliver? I don't think anything outruns it. I raise my voice over the groan of metal. I think we can build a less cruel space inside this. That's all. You plugged your shard into the harvest spikes. Velez's eyes narrow. I saw some of your channels before the alarms cut us. You watched me work, I say. You know how I think. What happens when the collector finishes with Earth and moves on? Velez's voice frays. Your shard will feed on the pain of other worlds. You wired yourself into the machine, Dower. You won't change it from there. You'll just be one more manager. He hits the part I kept pushing aside. The alternative was to sit in your office and keep sending people into slow cliffs until the end. I shake my head. At least here, some live faster. That's exactly how every bureaucrat in a death system justifies himself. The bridge shudders. The shard side rises as our fragment tilts. The near end starts to slip from the main archive's ledge. Velez. I reach out a hand he can't possibly grab. Come with us. He glances down at the drop, then back at me. This is your shard, he says. You drew its map. You count its breaths. Live in it. The near end loses purchase. For a moment, he and the ledge hang together. Then the structure under him tears away. Metal shrieks. The connector behind us peels off and falls into the gap. Philip yanks my arm, hauling me toward the shard side. We stumble through the emergency seal onto solid decking as the rest of the tube rips free and plummets. The main archive drifts away, pulled by forces I can't see. Cables between us snap one by one in white flares. The shard floats alone. Alarms fade. The yards below steady. Frames stop twisting. Our districts settle into a rough ring around the spine. Overhead, the sky no longer shows the cube's shared projection. The shard runs its own, a containment field holding a soft gradient, an imitation of atmosphere that almost convinces until you stare too long. Congratulations! Slade leans on the rail, catching his breath. You cut us loose. I look down at the yards. Our flows glow differently now. Every time the collector bites a world, a flare races along those channels into our spine. The pattern is unmistakable. We've become a parasite riding a predator. Philip rests his forearms on the rail beside me. So this is the place you built for us. He surveys the patchwork. Smaller, denser, with slightly better odds. For now? What happens when the collector finishes with Earth? Then it turns on something else. And we draw from that. His mouth flattens. Every future abduction feeds our lights. I know. He studies my profile. How do you live with that? I'll let you know if I manage it. Time in the shard settles into its own rhythm. We sit a little farther from the cube, but we can still see it through certain vantage points as a dark geometry with scattered lights. Our fragment hangs nearby, held in some orbit nobody in here can calculate. We set up a council because nothing else works. Phelan takes a seat, representing Imperial infrastructure. Hicks sends a proxy so he can keep tinkering in the yards. Slade sits grim and straight-backed, speaking for human districts and their clenched anger. A representative from the rebel band, shaved head, restless gaze, claims another chair. They drag me in as well, not as a politician, but as what I've become, auditor of the shard. You control the quotas, Slade points out. You design the flows. We need you here when we carve up what we've got. I'm not taking a formal post, I answer. I'll advise. I'll manage numbers. I won't be your ruler. This place already runs along your calculations, the rebel rep comments. That's a kind of rule. Then at least you can yell at the person doing it. We argue about allocations. Human districts demand more awareness. Imperial nodes want more to maintain infrastructure they insist is critical. The rebel band wants enough to organize workers and keep pressure from below. I push for a flatter map, with smaller gaps between top and bottom. We built this shard on triage, I remind them. We don't have to copy the worst inequalities. Flat quotas, slow upgrades, Phelan warns. If the yards fall behind, the shard decays. Steep quotas guarantee uprising, the rebel replies. Drag us here from the slow bands just to remake them, and we'll tear this apart. We end in messy compromise. Some districts get more, some less, but extremes shrink. Slow bands still exist, brief and targeted. We treat them as tools, not permanent shelves. Outside the council, life tilts toward ordinary. Philip works with a planning team to tame the shard's layout. They straighten streets where they can, reinforce precarious linkages, mark off haunted corners where fragments from dead worlds jut into nothing. Few choose to live near those edges. In some districts, people hang banners thanking me for pulling them out. In others, graffiti stains walls. A dead world feeds your light. Bureaucrats kill softly. Felix balances the books with blood. The words land and stay. The industrial yards grind on. Hicks spends his days there, twisting the collector's old tools into ours. He designs micro-extensions, small habitats to ease the crush in living zones. Each project burns energy. Each pushes us to pull a little more from those harvest spikes. Every time the shard shudders with a new flare, somewhere out beyond our orbit, a world loses a piece of itself. My office in the shard is smaller than Crossroads' glass-fronted one. The window looks onto the power spine instead of the canyon. The token rests in its slot. Around it, the shard's new quota maps overlay old archive templates. I steer fluctuations, rebalance flows, sand down anomalies before they split us. One day after a long council session, Philip drops into the chair opposite mine. "You look worse," he notes. "For a man living in bright districts, you don't act like you won." "If this is winning," I answer, "I understand quiet surrender." He leans back. "My neighborhood is alive," he says. "People work. Kids play. Time feels normal. That wouldn't be true without you. That doesn't erase the other column, the people you left behind. District 9, the ones we couldn't lift, the lives feeding our channels from whatever world is on the menu today." "That column never empties," Philip says. "Not here. The question is what you do with the awareness you bought." "You sound like a moral philosophy elective." "I sound like someone who's watched you treat guilt as a ledger you might balance someday." "You don't think I can?" "I think you'll keep trying until you stop." He stands. "Meanwhile, maybe we can make this shard less vicious than what we cut from." He leaves me with the maps. Sometimes I walk alone along a high bridge at the shard's outer edge. From certain angles, the cube still looms in the distance, a dark block speckled with light. Between it and us, resonant beams carry energy from the main archive into our spine, drawn by the harvest flares. Somewhere inside that mass, District 9 keeps moving. The teacher's lips form words at glacial speed. The delivery worker dreams routes that no longer exist. The union man's cane rests against his palm. All of them touched my hand once. Then I walked away. Under my feet, the shard hums. Power lines run warm. In districts I can't see from here, people bargain in markets, scheme in offices, sleep in rooms, fall in love, fight, mend. They do it at normal pace because I redirected the cost. I don't mistake that for justice. It's math. My math. One evening, staring at the cube, I catch my fingers sketching in the air. A notion. A way to slowly ease our dependency on harvest spikes, to fold more of our power into internal loops, to tighten and reuse until we might someday cut our last ties to the collector. The idea is half-formed and dangerous. Implemented too soon, it starves the shard. Too late, and we remain a permanent parasite. My hand settles on the rail. "Trying to fix it already," Philip says behind me. "Of course. You knew I would." He steps beside me. "Will you do it?" he asks. "Cut us loose from the harvest one day. If I ever see a path that doesn't kill everyone here, yes. And if there's no such path, then I die as the man who wired us into an endless stream of stolen minutes. And you can live with that?" "No." We stand together, watching the cube and our smaller shadow near it. I imagine the countless minds inside that larger block, stretched and squeezed, arranged in patterns only the collector and its cores understand. Some I judged. Most I never met. Behind us the shard is briefly quiet. No alarms, no riots. Just mechanical breathing. The question that has followed me since the tram still hangs, even unspoken. Did I use my access to save a meaningful fraction? Or did the system simply recast me as another manager of slow death? The honest answer sits in the space between. I turn back toward the corridors, toward my office, toward stacks of pending packets. The token warms in my palm. Each time I seal a new allocation, districts shift by fractions. Time rises for some, falls for others. No explosions, no clean redemption. Just a man with a pen, moving columns in a ledger that now spans worlds, trying, however thin the margin, to make the harm he can't avoid land in places he can at least name. It will never be enough. I do it anyway.